Our focus now is on the youth, the change maker of today and tomorrow. The session is titled Fair Trade and Sustainability Education, where we explore how schools and educators are building awareness and action on sustainability, shaping the next generation of leaders. Moderating this session is Professor Darrell Reed. I please request Professor Darrell Reed, to come on stage. He's a distinguished professor, Department of Economics at Shiv Nadar University, Delhi NCR. With over 25 years of experience in teaching in Canada at York University and the University of British Columbia, Professor Reed's research spans cooperatives, fair trade movement, social enterprises, business ethics, developmental ethics, combining academic rigor with practical engagement. Beyond academia, he has been deeply involved in cooperative and fair trade movement, serving as a founding president of the Green Campus Cooperative and as a past president of Canadian Association for the Studies in Cooperation. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Now, I request speakers to come on stage. I invite Ms. Kalai Selvi, Head of School, Vidyashilp Academy. Selvi ma'am has been with the school since its inception, growing from a founding teacher to the deputy principal and now leading with inclusion, vision, and compassion. A distinguished educator and an award-winning leader, she is deeply committed to strengthening student learning with nurturing their aspirations and well-being. Thank you, ma'am. Now I invite Ms. Anuradha Krishnan, Head of School, Ebenezer International School, Bangalore. Anuradha ma'am has led transformative learning spaces with focus on joy, empathy, and student-centered growth. Currently, the Regional Head of School South, she oversees 4 campuses across Bangalore and Trichy, guiding teams with visionary leadership and a commitment to nurturing conscious, compassionate global citizens. Thank you, ma'am, for joining. And now I invite Dr. Amrita Vora. With over 30 years in education, Dr. Amrita Vora is a passionate educator and the Head of Education and Culture India at Adani GEMS Education, where she leads academic operation and projects nationwide. A recognized leader, certified IB Head of School, and one of the India's top 100 great people managers. She has shaped numerous schools and curricula while championing culture of thinking, inclusive education, and teacher leadership across India. Thank you so much, ma'am. With that, I am delighted to hand it over to Professor Darrell Reed to lead this important conversation.
Welcome, everyone. This is going to be a wonderful session. This is where education really happens. As a professor, I was not hired because I could teach. I was hired because of my publication record. I don't get promoted because I can teach. And a lot of extra effort. These are the people who know about education. So I'm very delighted and a bit humbled to be in the presence of real educators. So this is going to be a great session. We've asked somewhat cruelly each of them to prepare 7 slides to present in 7 minutes. That's going to be very frustrating for them. So recognize that you're not getting a smorgasbord here, you're getting a sampler plate, okay? That's all you're getting, but you will have the opportunity to ask questions afterwards, so that's good, okay? So each one will get 7 minutes, and we will see their true pedagogical skills then, right? So we'll start in the order which they were introduced by Janta.
So I'm just starting straight away. 2018, 15th August was a very special day for Vidyashil because that day we received the responsibility of being the India's first fair trade school, and also we committed to become more mindful and ethical consumers. What did we do? Every problem that we faced at school was converted into an opportunity. 2,500 children have lunch with us. The vegetable waste became the vermicompost. Excess vermicompost became the feed for our Shilpreneurship initiative. The paper trash within the school gave room for phenomenal creative expressions. What did we do to create awareness in the school? We brought the 90 kgs weighing the largest India's fair trade, organic t-shirt into the school, and we had the whole school community for an assembly. That excitement and what they took back home was the beginning of our sharing the commitment with our community. The fair trade assemblies and the children, I think they seized the opportunity to look at what they could do for sustainable development goals. Enormous activities, and as part of the curriculum, we didn't do anything separately. We seamlessly integrated everything as part of the curriculum. Visits to the neighborhood markets, it just meant children taking the paper bags and replacing the plastic, and then talking about what fair trade meant. A whole lot of initiatives brought in a lot of excitement. Children becoming the ambassadors made it that much easier for us to bring the community. A whole lot of activities, right from 2,500 children leading a march into the neighborhood, talking about how we want to ease ourselves from the exploitation guilt, to interfaces in the neighborhood malls, brought the entire community together. What did we do? The first response was, what can we do as a small step? So the fair trade switch happened, and I'm extremely happy that our community was for it. The first time when we did this shift, the difference amount was only 156 rupees per t-shirt. But the impact was massive. Followed by that, we took our children to the Tirupur place where the uniforms were made. We also had a very unique opportunity of bringing the farmer from whose farm the cotton went into making the first set of uniforms for us. Their presence with their entire family did magic in the school, and the stories that we were able to draw from there was the beginning of our commitment. Of course, Vidyashilp has grown. I think fair trade has grown, and it will keep growing. And I just want to bring one student's example here. Adya, who was the recipient of that first recognition there, she's there. And then next Tirupur visit, followed by that, you will see how she is growing with her GREW Fair Trade initiative with us. What did she do? She went on to look at creating a NEERI project, which is conserving water. So fair trade did not confine itself to uniform. The commitment became so intrinsic for everyone, and we only wish that each and every Adya in Vidyashilp continues this commitment. The e-commerce platform is something that our students said that I should emphasize here. That's something which we are extremely proud, because the platform was initiated by two of our students who are currently in university. They took the onus to creating this from scratch. And we also had several companies coming in right now, and these are the products that are continuously sold. A sports day is not just a community gathering there, but we bring these industry partners and these fair trade groups to talk. And then those kiosks and the stalls are taken over by our students. So we don't know whether the company is owned by them or our students. That's the kind of ownership that our students have been able to share. We really want to share some of the things very organically. When the school responds to these SDG goals, it has a massive impact. Bringing the community, it simply meant the grandmother who came for a casual conversation and was talking during a time where we were talking about how to create an impact. We said, who grew my food? Who grew my food and who made my clothes was one of the campaign. And we started this basmati cultivation in our school. The grandmother brought the husk. The germination was done within the classroom. Then the transplantation to harvesting to cooking that rice which was grown in school on the World Environment Day. It just simply meant magic to all of us. And with that, the 9th standard children were able to cover the entire agriculture unit effortlessly. And I think that experience is something that they hold on even after years. What did we do? That impact is now continuing with the Shilp Udyan initiative in our new campus. Basmati is replaced with Ragi right now, and then children are continuously trying to grow. That image of the child trying to measure his growth is also a kind of metaphor that I wish to bring here. VSS commitment, I think it's important that we start sharing what we are doing in larger platforms. We had an opportunity, the students who are here currently were also the youngest panelists in last year's Delhi conference. We also had an opportunity through Switch Asia funding. 4 of our students and Ritu and myself had an opportunity to be part of the German International Conference. So these are great ways also to communicate, and I'm extremely happy. We were India's first fair trade school, and today I think Ajanta was mentioning we have 72 schools. The movement, what is started as a small step, is becoming a movement, and I request everybody to join. The legacy continues. The steering committee, which was initiated by the team, now is handed over so beautifully, because that sense of accountability is something, it's not taught. And to close this 6-7 minutes of mine, I wish to say, schools are the cradles for humanity's future, where values are not taught in words, but in actions and deeds. And I'm extremely happy that our students are trying to embody that spirit in the best possible way. And thanks to our faculty who are constantly supporting, and our parents who have been a backbone to this entire initiative. On that note, I request all of you to join this movement, because the stories that we heard there by the farmer was a reflection of what small actions make such a big impact. We knew that the premium is going to make a difference to their children's life, but the lady, Sunita, when she spoke, it really meant a lot. Our small actions will make a big change. And I really thank you all for giving us the 7 minutes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anuradha, and I head a few schools. I'm trying to showcase 3 of these schools in my little 7 minutes. I don't know how much justice I can do, but why we started Fair Trade, of course, I'm in awe of what Kalay and her school have done. And you children, amazing stuff, really good, inspirational for all of us. We started because we believe that children make the difference. They are the change makers. They are the ones who will change the world for tomorrow. It's not a grand act that's required to transform the world. What we need is small acts multiplied by million people. And we in India are 1.5 billion nearly. So the chance for us to transform the world is huge. So I think making them aware, making them empathetic, making them able to understand fairness and justice, equitable distribution, etc., is what we need to focus on. So that's why we took it on. So I will start by talking about Primus. Primus was the first school that I was at. So Primus has only got the first Fair Aware badge, and it's moving on from there. But they started, their kindergartners are busy repurposing things. They are working with converting t-shirts and stuff, creating recycled goods, ornaments, trophies. They actually created the trophy for a competition using plastic. And they said, that is going to be our rolling trophy. You know, so they took that initiative and did that. They created Eco Bricks. They created a magazine, a fashion magazine, using pictures of themselves in clothes that were repurposed. You know, so I think, I'm sorry, I can't show you the magazine. They've only got the cover page here, but yeah. So they did create a magazine. So these are some of the things that Primus did. The next school I'm talking about is the Alpha Cambridge International School based out of Trichy. They've also done a bunch of stuff. I don't want to repeat myself, but they've also, in addition to the things that Primus has done, they actually went out into the market, spoke to at the Uraivar Sante, is that what it is called? I'm sorry, my pronunciation of Tamil may be bad, but they went out to the market, spoke to the farmers, spoke to the consumers there, bringing awareness. They went out to a village near Trichy to plant trees, didn't restrict themselves to within their school. They spoke to parents, to all of them. But I think the key thing was, one of the things was they all donated, about 800 students donated clothes that were, maybe they outgrew, gently used clothes, which were then distributed. Some of them were upgraded, you know, they worked on it and then they handed it over. So they did those kind of things. And the other very fun thing that they did, I think, was sourced raw material for making chocolate from, you know, organic sources and stuff. And then went through this process of creating chocolate as a large group activity. So not only did it bring joy and, you know, learning and creativity, but there was dessert at the end. I think nothing is sweeter than that. So that's something that they did that was really wonderful. The next school I'm talking about will be EISB, where we are still on the march towards Fair Achiever. We haven't got there yet. We are heading there. Hopefully. We've tried, we've sourced a few things, but I think the last year, the thing that we focused on most was spices. So we contacted Pyramid Development Society in Idiki, Kerala, which works, this organization, an NGO, works with farmers, marginal farmers, with tribals in that region. And we sourced spices, and every chance we got, we had student-run kiosks, whether it was sports day, annual day, carnival, you know, whatever. And we used that opportunity to talk to parents and students about what fair trade is all about. And we sold out every single time. We had to go back and buy more. And on top of that, we decided to have a special parent-teacher meet where, in addition to hearing about your child, you had to hear about fair trade too. It was a must, right? So we made sure every parent heard a little bit about what it means to buy something that may be slightly expensive, but then you're doing right by the planet. You know, so that's something that we tried to do. And just like Kalai said, I think the children are what inspire us all the time. So they have these meetings, maybe quarterly, where they sit down to plan the next action. What are we going to do? So they have their planning meets. In addition, there's lots of discussions that happen in all the schools around, say, I think there was something around minimum wage versus living wage, right? So there was, sometimes the minimum wage is really not enough to live a decent life. And so should we then talk about living wage rather than minimum wage? I think this brings awareness when you talk about these things, you know, and working with SDG goals. Now, SDG is a 3-letter jargon, TLJ, that flows out of the tongues of even 3-year-olds, right? Every school is talking about SDG goals. So every number, they'll tell you, oh, 6 is about water and 7 is energy. They'll actually tell you what each number stands for. I'm so happy that it's become like that. It's become so well known across students, because if the students didn't know it, we wouldn't know it, right? I know it because my students know it. I can assure you I'm learning from them, all of this. So I think that's where we want to go, where the children teach us more about these things. And it's a world they are going to live in. And let's make sure that they do their best so that we give them an opportunity to live in a better world. A world where they have rights to live a beautiful life. So thank you so much for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you.
It's so wonderful that this is the one session, I think, where we have children. And it's been quite an illustrious... Okay. Sustainability is what I will try and focus on, because essentially that's what we're all trying to talk about. And when I had a word with Ajanta, I said, what do you want me to say? She said, there's a lot that Vidya Shilp is going to say. So anyway, and I know that you're all doing same thing, so let's not be repetitive, but why sustainability? Let's bring in a little bit of Lord Byron here. I am a literature person, so I'll go that direction any which way. So she walks in beauty like the night, in cloudless climes and starry night. Where are the stars though? There are no stars,
not in the Gurgaon or Delhi sky anymore. Maybe you see them in Bangalore. I don't know. Yeah, there are no stars. Okay, let's go to the day. So then let's talk about the blue sky. But is the sky blue anymore? It's gray. What are we doing to the planet? I mean, consuming. We forgot being in the entire process of consuming, and we consume the very planet away, pretty much. I think that's where we are at. It's the doomsday clock is ticking. Yes, there is a lot in the small things that we do. Every small act matters, like she very beautifully pointed out, but it's way more urgent where we stand today. We talk about creating a future for these children, but I think the very future is at stake here. So which is why, yes, SDG goals, and we were having a little bit of a discussion during lunch today that, SDG goals, yes, every school is talking about it, but is it like, what is it doing and how are they doing it and so on? SDG goal is not something, okay, this number, yes, this goal is this one, that goal is that one. Yes, the kids know it. Unless they imbibe and bring all of it, they experience it in their own life. One of the examples she shared about that planting of that rice, the basmati, and bringing that family for that t-shirt, the children actually meeting that family who grew that cotton. You humanized it, made it real for them. I think that making it real is what we really need to do in everyday things. So when we talk about anything to do with sustainability, whether it is the SDGs or anything else, it has to be an experience. It has to be done in a format, okay, this is the problem. And I remember your words, if the problem is well defined, then it is half solved, from last year's conference. So that problem, this problem, then we just give that problem to them. Like, okay, this is the problem defined. Sometimes some children define them. And we have children coming up with different kinds of solutions. Not in science or in maths or through English or through... the disciplines have to come together. Those boxes have to go away. The lab coats go this way. The painted canvases go that way. Nobody meet, stay away. That's how we were taught. And I don't think those streams need to continue anymore. They just don't make sense. Not today, not anytime. And then the results that happen when every lesson is about figuring out a solution to a problem is something like this. The furniture that you see here, that book cabinet, the sofa on which those girls are sitting, what do you think that's made of? What kind of plastic? What plastic? Milk wrappers. It's actually children collected a whole lot of milk wrappers that most of them get at home, and they put it together. They figured out a way. They didn't just give it to some vendor who did the furniture for them. They figured out a way to create it. They did the designs, and then they developed these things. They decided, okay, we need a sofa here. They did some eco bricks and other stuff. I mean, not just these, but there were many other materials they played and thought through with, because the idea is you give them the free hand, the free space to, get their hands dirty. They will come up with amazing ideas. And that's what happens. So they decided, this idea came from children, that are at the gate, the security guards, we need a place to sit for them. They're standing. We see a lot of guards standing. So they utilized the eco bricks and they utilized some clay. They figured out a way to bring that clay together to create sofas or seating places of different modes and variety for all these people. Now here you see them getting their hands dirty literally in the soil. We have something we call the Garden of Hope. We have something we called a butterfly garden. So children are, I love the butterflies. They look beautiful, and they've always, I've tried to be around and I've liked them. So children wanted to know, why do we see butterflies in a certain environment in a certain place and not so many, or some in a certain season. They come on some flowers and some not. So they did the whole research detailed project on the butterflies and then figured out which plants they need to grow and where. So they created a space which we now call our butterfly garden. And yes, all the year round there are butterflies. They maintain it and they love it. Alongside this garden, the Garden of Hope is a little herb garden. Somebody came up with that we used to have something called Dev Bhumi in India. It used to be a place in temples where they would grow herbs. So that was nice. So why don't we have some place which is like every day protected nicely, and we have nice herbs growing right there and we can just use them. So that's the Garden of Hope, again brought out by children. Now, one of the schools is in Gurgaon, which Ajanta has often frequented, and Gurgaon or Delhi has really faced this problem with the stubble burning. In one of the sessions today, somebody was talking about, and I was so happy to hear about how to reuse or figure out a solution to that problem. Our children, the lab coats and the canvases come together, as I said, not in bi-lanes, but they come together and they said that we want to find a solution. So they started creating some sort of artifacts. Now these look very raw here because they were actually raw. They collected the stubble. They figured out a way to get the farmer to give it. They figured that the farmer will not really spend the money to come to all of us and to transport it. So we have to figure out a way to actually get it also, make it convenient, only then it will work, and so on. And they, from technology to anything and everything they used, and they have managed to ensure that the stubble now gets collected from a whole host of farmers. And all these artifacts, which they worked out a way. They also went to IIT Delhi to figure it out when they couldn't do it on their own because it was not smooth enough to bind, as you can see here. They still used it. And like she said, every occasion, every opportunity, literally, is a way to get the parent community and whichever other community we can to engage. So we anyway don't call it a PTM. That's very judgment-oriented space. So we have, of course, the student-led conference and the reflection conferences where the child is at the center. So the children decided that we're going to showcase whatever we've created to the parents, and whoever would like to contribute, they can buy and take it away, and we will give it back to those farmers. Now, these and so many other initiatives that children come up with as we walk the talk. Well, literally walk the talk. The children, one more idea the children came up with was the path, the electricity path. They call it the Piaggio path. For some reason, I'm not a science person, so I wouldn't know. But there is a corridor in the school which is much walked. Everybody crosses that area. So they have put that Piaggio path there using the energy generated when you step onto these bricks that they have placed on that path. Electricity is generated. So this is different from solar energy, which is anyway there, but they came up with other ideas because they felt that we need more ideas. We have an organic farm. They've been learning a lot about soil literacy. So they've realized that you can't be growing the same thing over and over in the same soil, and you need to keep changing and why and how and so on. And they've been interacting with people to do that. I knew she was going to come and she was going to show that. And that's where we have this little, you see this child giving away that vegetable, because there's a vegetable market that's always there at every event where parents come in, irrespective of what it is. Yes, we have different seasons and different vegetables grow in different seasons. So I think it's all about interconnectedness. Separateness is really an illusion. Everything is interconnected, and ideas like fair trade and so much more, and whatever we can do together is too little. As where we are in the narrative arc of history, I mean, our learners really need to ensure that we save what we have left of the planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our panelists. I suspect you have questions. So maybe we'll take a couple of questions at a time, and then we will pass them over to the panelists. Questions about curriculum, experiential education, products, anything that you have. Okay? No questions? You guys were great, apparently. I mean, wow.
No questions, but just compliments to the schools. So just compliments to the schools. I think you're doing some amazing job with children starting from the grassroots level, seeing toddlers to be engaged in organic farming. It's something so great to somebody covering agriculture chapter of grade 9. I have my son who was in 9th last year, so I know what it means. There was an element of organic farming in biology as well as geography. So I think such hands-on activities, and like ma'am just mentioned about, the herb garden at Shiv Nada University, we also have a biodiversity park where we have 11 thematic gardens. So herb garden, cactus garden, butterfly garden, and so many more, the bamboo garden and so on. So congratulations to all of you, and we would love to collaborate with your schools and get our university students also associated with the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny. Questions?
I have a small question. I was really fascinated by the idea of generating electricity by, putting those tiles along a more commonly walked area. What inspired you with the idea to actually come up with such a fascinating theory?
Can we give a mic to, we have a
First of all, not me. Some kids your age were inspired. And what they told us, teachers, is that, if electricity can be generated with any source, then it should be any source. We know hydro, we know solar. There have to be more. And there have to be simpler things and simpler ways, because energy is everywhere. So we have to figure out a simpler way. And they did their research, they came up with it, they figured it out, and here we've been using that Piaggio path pretty regularly. As of now, it's a simple model, so it only generates electricity for one or two bulbs at this point. But there we go, it's a start.
Prakshi?
Hi, I'm Prachi from Shiv Nada Foundation. Absolutely delighted to hear you all. And I have never been a teacher, disclaimer. So my questions will be rookie, and please forgive me for that. But I have a very operational question to you. I do encounter in my work that teachers also have a large amount of pressure where their performance is judged by academic achievements of the students, performance of the students, which means they have to make sure that the syllabus is completed, blah, I really don't know, but those lines. In middle of this, you have done Vidyashilp, you and Adani, you have done such great work. Is there a secret sauce that we are missing, or can you please help us to understand that what keeps the teachers motivated? And the second question is there an incentive, or what gets them to, I think you get it, what I want to ask.
I'll just start since I do have the mic. The times they are changing, so I think there is a lot of interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary learning that's happening. And the pressure comes in typically, say, 9, 10, 11, 12, if that. So it's until then, I think we have schools like ours are not putting that kind of pressure on the children. There is some learning that has to happen, but all of this is learning. Every single thing that they're doing is part of learning. So I don't think that pressure is very high.
We are so fortunate. I think some of our teachers are here. It would be wonderful to hear from them, both. And then we have Bharat also here. Come and join. First, Bharat sir. Bharat sir first.
Gents first.
Phase 1 first.
Luckily for me, in my position, we do not have a syllabus to follow. The entire world is our syllabus, and we can take anything and everything from there as a leaf to teach our students. And sometimes our students are the ones who lead us to what they have to be taught. We keep it very distinct. Some of them are staring at me and when did we... But yes, we do take their suggestions and bring the syllabus. For Bharat sir, I think the balancing act is more realistic. And he will tell you more about it because you have to hear it from his mouth.
Okay. So, of course, portion completion is something that we do focus on. But again, this is part of the curriculum because I teach business and economics. There is a limitation in how much I can teach in the classroom. And some of this has to be experienced in the real world. And that practical experience can be provided I have these projects. There's learning opportunity. And as ma'am said, it's learning. At every single point, there is some amount of learning that I take back to the classroom. So in the classroom, I will then have a discussion, be it marketing, be it inventory, be it sales. We go back and we then probably have a debrief. What went right? What went wrong? In the business world, okay, what are the available theories? Can be connected back to that? So this is where it helps me also enhance my curriculum. So in a way, it also helps me complete my portions. And students have a better understanding of the business world. So it helps me. And what keeps me motivated? When students are motivated, I mean, that's motivation enough for me. So they just drive me. So they come back and say, we wanted to get this done. So that's enough for me.
Now can I take that back and also tell you like what motivates them and what do we do to acknowledge? Starting with Joyita, who spoke, she's owned this fair trade concept, and I think it's so much part of her personality now. She truly believes in that, and her energy and enthusiasm constantly inspires us. What did we do? What is the additional acknowledgement that we can do? I think for all of us, we definitely, as adults, we want that acknowledgement, recognition, positive stroke, which definitely they gravitate from the children. Parents also very generously they shower. And as part of the school management, what we did is like within the organization, there are certain limited number of leadership roles that we can. But seeing her enthusiasm and energy, we really wanted to see what is that we could do, give her that role and be able to give that responsibility. So it is individuals like Joyita, now Bharat, also like even though he was not the senior in terms of the number of years that he spent, but looking at his passion, we said, what kind of leadership responsibilities can we give? Their inspiration motivated us to bring in a center of engagement activity, the COE, which has become part of the school's initiative. Now the COE head, complete responsibility lies on Joyita. We go to her and it's only she's the master there and she's the leader there. I think one thing, knowledge and learning, we can always draw from each other. Bharat heads our Venture Studio initiative. He is also instrumental in inspiring. I think so enthusiasm becomes very infectious. They take onus. We have Grace with us here. They take initiative voluntarily. She came back and said like, I was so impressed about we give biscuits for children every day. And she said, what could we do? Can we bring these outside groups to convert the biscuit wrappers into pouches? And now that is being sold. So we feel it's very, they are owning this entire thing and they come up because they genuinely feel the happiness. And I personally feel intrinsic motivation, which we constantly strive to nurture in children, first level, I think we need to bring it to the teachers. And if that happens, it cascades down. So I think they have been a great inspiration, and within our capacity, positive strokes is what we constantly keep giving them opportunities to lead certain initiatives.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll just add a little to that. Here is an example of a leader who ensures there's distributed leadership. This is what does it, really. I mean, and she genuinely trusts in the ideas that come from there. That is what does it. Coverage has always been the enemy of learning. So we have to push it out of the window. That's very critical. Another thing to add to this, what we do is we share with the children, even in, not in the board classes, but like you said, till grade 8, we have the leeway. In the board classes, by then, you know, they are well versed with all of this enough to themselves come back and say and to, you know, yeah. So then then they are pretty independent and they're grown-ups in their own right. But till then, we tell them, these are the learning outcomes. These are the success criteria. This is what we're looking at. And there's a lot of self-reflection embedded in the system. And then we say, okay, this is what will be tested in the end of the day. Now you figure out. And they build all of these projects and so on. And all of that learning, believe me, happens. And like he said, the debrief sessions and so on is where the teachers figure it out and, facilitate the direction as required.
Just a little bit. Actually, it's more of our concern and mindset, like about the exams and assessments, like numerical assessment. Yesterday, we had, for one of our health causes, we had Steps for Smile initiative. And we had Adya there in that event. She came in at 6 or before 6 o'clock. She was there hosting the event till 8:30. And from there, directly, she traveled 15 kilometers to the school to write her international exams. And that's the kind of spirit that children have. Many a times we hold it because we are more worried about certain outcomes.
Janta tells me we have very, very little time left. So one more question, which we'll have to answer very quickly, okay?
Yes.
One more question.
Hi, myself Shivam. I'm from Vidyagana School, the part of SNF actually. We are in the initial stage. We have just enrolled for fair trade. I just wanted to ask, not from the conversation right now, what are the initial hurdles which we may face, and what advice would you like to give to us?
Quickly, Vibha.
Yeah. So really, initially, I think finding the person who is motivated, finding the person who it has touched, who feels the passion, who's willing to take it forward, who's willing to go the extra mile. Finding that person or that group of people, that is the biggest hurdle. Once you have done that, then the children will take over. You will motivate the children and that will take over. But that initial seeding process, I think that is where it takes a little time. Once that's there, then that idea just goes all out. It grows like a web that goes all around. That's the only thing that
I absolutely agree, and we have to be quick. And that person, like she said, the web grows, seeding many, many more. But it's only about the start.
Finding the right kind of switch that you wish to do. Like when we started the uniform, we had to work with some vendors who were able to work with us. So a margin which was not very alarming, it made it that much easier. So finding that person, during pandemic, we did have difficulty continuing that. So now looking at and not giving up on it is something. Then it's easy for you to give up when there are pressures coming in. Don't hold on. And somebody, I think that core team needs to continuously believe in it.
Okay, thank you very much. I would ask you to give the panel a very strong ovation. And because this is India, we have to have felicitations.
I wish to speak for just 1 minute, which didn't come up here, but just to mention that when we talked about discipline, right? So Ebenezer talks about fair trade through their footballs, right? And so, James talks about fair trade through their French classes and English classes. And librarian was for the longest time leading the fair trade initiative. And now it's the English teachers and Ruchi ma'am and Manisha ma'am, of course. So it's not only the subjects, but anything can be fair trade, like Vidyashilp. It's everywhere, right? Okay. So thank you so much, Professor Darrell, for moderating the session. And thank you so much to all the panelists and speakers. Thank you so much, audience, to, sitting here and listening to us. And we are the ones who have finished the session in time. Yes, we have not eaten up in time. Okay. A heartfelt thanks also to all our audience. As a token of our gratitude, may I now invite Ms. Bindu on stage. She is CEO of Fairtrade NAP to kindly come forward and present the speaker mementos to each of our speakers. Yeah, so you be there. Yeah. In the photos. Okay. Anuradha ma'am. Dr. Amrita. Professor Reed. I would request all the speakers and Professor Reed and Ms. Bindu to remain on stage for a quick photo op.